Hi, everybody who's with us today. Welcome to the webinar on the expansion of the Nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, or NatHERS, to existing homes. My name is Joanne Reedy, and I'm the Director of Program Delivery for NatHERS. So this session is intended for current energy assessors involved with the Residential Efficiency Scorecard, NatHERS for new homes, and the ACT Energy Efficiency Rating Disclosure Schemes. It aims to provide information about the expansion of NatHERS to existing homes for potential assessors, including the opportunities and requirements to become an accredited NatHERS for existing homes assessor in the coming months. Just for everyone's awareness, this session is going to be recorded so that we can make it available to those who are unable to attend today. Before we get into things today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting today. For those of us here in Canberra, that's the Ngunnawal people. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across Australia, where participants are joining us from today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. We recognise First Nations people's continuing connection to land, waters and culture. And on that basis, I'm proud to extend respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Okay, you'll see on the screen an agenda that we intend to cover today in our webinar. The things we're going to cover are an overview of the scale-up of NatHERS for existing homes and the potential opportunities for assessors, a run-through of the NatHERS for existing homes assessment process, its outputs, and how we're looking to enhance this into the future. Information on how to become a NatHERS for existing homes accredited assessor. We'll also be having a panel discussion with some of our currently accredited assessors so that they can share their insights. We'll cover off on next steps where you can provide more information, where you can find more information, I apologise. And we'll have an extended period at the end for questions. Given that there is going to be a very high number of registrations for this webinar, we think we've got over 300 registered attendees. We're going to be managing questions through the team's Q&A function, and you'll see a little slide up there now about how you can access that function. We're not going to be accessing questions through the chat or through microphones so that we can manage this effectively. You can put your questions through at any time. We have plenty of time reserved a little later to have them answered. With the high number of attendees, we may get a large number of questions, and we're going to need to prioritise and moderate these questions, and we apologise if we don't get to everything during this session. We'll provide our contact details at the end in case you have further questions that you would like to ask over time. Okay, we've got a number of people who are going to support in providing this webinar. And to start us off by giving an overview on NatHERS for existing homes will be Isaac Gravelin. Over to you, Isaac.
Thanks, Joe, and hi everybody. My name is Isaac Gravelin and I'm the Director of Strategy and Program Management for NatHERS. So I wanted to start off quickly by outlining the key decisions the Australian Government and the states and territories have made regarding home energy ratings. So I want to start with May 2023, when, following calls from banks and industry groups, the Australian Government announced the first batch of funding to design the expansion of NatHERS to existing homes. Since then, we've agreed the Home Energy Ratings Disclosure Framework with all energy ministers, and this essentially establishes how home energy rating disclosure schemes will work and that NatHERS is the tool that will underpin them. We've also had all energy ministers agree to the delivery model for NatHERS for existing homes, and recently the government announced $33 million to continue and scale up the rollout of ratings for existing homes. And this really reflects that the government recognises the benefits of home energy ratings and also that they're committed to continue delivering and improving ratings into the future. And as a bit of bonus content, if you're interested in having your say on NatHERS for existing homes, we are currently consulting on possible new accreditation pathways for assessors, excuse me, for assessors such as dedicated data collectors. And you can get more info on that on nathers.gov.au. So NatHERS for existing homes is being released in stages. This allows for continued improvement and learning by doing, while working closely with industry, state and territory governments, and last but not least, assessors. The approach provides time for industry to transition and scale up, and it provides a controlled environment to step forward with the sector. So that includes things like trials of disclosure at point of sale and continuing to integrate with the finance sector. Stage 1 of the rollout was released in mid-2025, so in July, and that included a first generation tool and a very limited pool of assessors. We're now in the scale-up period, and during this period, we're going to continue to refine processes, communications, and tools. We're going to be standing up service providers for accreditation and training and working with third-party commercial software developers. We're making accreditation and training available to targeted groups during this period, including existing energy assessors such as yourselves. And we're working with the New South Wales government on a trial of the disclosure of home energy ratings at point of sale. The next step is to release stage 2 in mid-2026. And this will include an updated second generation tool, assessment method and processes based on the feedback that we've received. We'll also open up training and accreditation at this point to all interested assessors. And it's at this point that we'd begin public promotion to households. So our progress so far has been informed by trials we've run in partnership with banks and CSIRO, looking at homes across all states and including small apartments to large architecturally designed homes. We've completed over 1,000 assessments and had over 3,000 households express interest. We've had the trials independently evaluated, and this found that the NatHERS for existing homes model was broadly functional and increasingly well received, while also identifying a number of areas for a refinement. These areas which we've been working on included enhancing training, simplifying tools, and streamlining assessments. So a key part of our work is driving the uptake of ratings by having them incorporated into programs and offerings. Our primary focus is governments to underpin the disclosure of home energy ratings at sale or lease, and the New South Wales government is currently conducting a trial of voluntary home energy ratings disclosure, which they will then review to inform when to transition to mandatory disclosure in the future. The ACT, on the other hand, already has a successful and long-running disclosure scheme, and a recent review identified that while it was very successful in achieving its outcomes, aligning with NatHERS for existing homes could better support their objectives. And we're in discussion with the ACT Government City and Environment Directorate about that. Another key set of users are banks and the finance sector, who've been calling for NatHERS for existing homes and disclosure. Ratings of existing homes will allow them to offer verified green loans, participate in green finance markets through the Australian Sustainable Finance Taxonomy, and also report on and meet their emissions reporting requirements and commitments. And then the third audience that I wanted to highlight is upgrade programs, such as those run by state and local governments. So for example, in Victoria, there are a range of current programs underpinned by the Scorecard, and we're working with those sorts of programs to investigate how they could use NatHERS ratings for existing homes.
Thank you, Isaac. I hope that's helped everybody to understand a bit of the recent history and where we broadly aim to go in the future. The next segment that we're going to have is an overview of NatHERS for existing homes assessments, tools, outputs, and planned future improvements. And to do that, I'm going to hand over to Lachlan Cheers, one of our partners from CSIRO. He's going to provide an overview of the tool and assessment approach. And during this section, Lachlan will hand over to Dave Bronoro from NatHERS, who will talk you through assessment outputs and our future improvements. Over to you, Lachlan.
Thank you very much. As mentioned, my name is Lachlan Cheers. I've been with CSIRO for the past 8 years, working on existing home assessments in different forms. And with colleagues, I sit behind the CSIRO tool help desk. So I want to take a moment to walk you through the workflow of the tools that we use for NatHERS for existing homes assessments, from data collection in Magic Plan to analysis in Accurate Enterprise to final certification through HSTAR. And rather than just a list of steps, it's worth sharing why this flow exists in the first place. So this is just the story behind this workflow. So when Accurate was originally built, it was designed for new homes. Assessors were working off detailed architectural plans. So the software expected full geometry to be hand entered in every wall, every window, every construction element. But with existing homes, we don't have that luxury. We don't have full drawings or exact measurements or reliable documentation. We had to find a way to capture the geometry in the field quickly, accurately, and consistently, and then move it into Accurate without hours of manual data entry. So our team went looking for a tool that could bridge that gap. And that's how we arrived at Magic Plan. It wasn't built for these purposes originally, but it was built for precision on-site data capture. We tested it, built connections, refined the process, and after many iterations, ended up with the workflow we use today. So we'll be running through a video of it in action, but before that, I want to take you through the steps. So everything starts in Magic Plan, the data collection using Magic Plan. LiDAR gives us the spatial data, walls, room areas, ceiling heights, dimensions, and then the custom in-app forms let us collect construction information and whole of home details in a structured way within the app. During the scan, we capture photos, so we have clear evidence of everything we've recorded. And by the end of the site visit, we've got a consistent, complete data set that's designed to flow cleanly into the next stage. But before we leave Magic Plan, we tidy up the floor plan. Small edits, correcting room names, checking wall positions, adjusting anything in the scanning that might have had challenges with, might be built-in robes detected as another room. Once this is all done, we can export two things: a PDF, which becomes your reference record or documentation, and the project file, which gets sent directly into your Accurate Enterprise account. So moving over to pre-filling in Accurate Enterprise. When we open the file in Accurate Enterprise, all the spatial data is there: the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the roof, the windows, the doors, the whole geometry, and in the basic constructions that you've selected in those custom forms. If you've selected eaves, Magic Plan forms, the software will produce a single continuous eave around the house. Goal here is simple: just reduce repetitive data entry so assessors can focus on the parts of the job that require real technical judgment. Then we have the data addition. From there, we layer in the elements that do require manual input. So this is whole of home appliance details, more complex shading, ceiling penetrations, mixed constructions, and subfloor and roof space nuances. And this is where the assessor expertise comes in. The workflow doesn't replace the technical skills, it amplifies it by removing the admin overhead. And then we move down to the generate certificate. Once the model and simulation is complete, Accurate Enterprise connects directly to HStar through an API. So with a single click, the software sends the project to the HStar and it returns a certificate all inside Accurate Enterprise. So there's no re-uploading or re-entering any details. It's a straight-through process. So that's the journey. From capturing real-world geometry in Magic Plan to analysing it and refining the model in Accurate Enterprise to producing a certificate via HStar. All built on a workflow designed specifically for the realities of existing homes. Whilst we now have production tools, development still continues. Driven by user feedback, we continue to refine our tools to including custom form, structure, and position to simplify the workflow further. This overall process came from a very practical need to work accurately, efficiently, and at scale. And it's ultimately about supporting you, the assessor, to spend less time fighting the software and more time applying your expertise. If we progress to the next slide, we will see a video.
In this video, we'll demonstrate how to collect data using Magic Plan for an accurate NatHERS rating of an existing home. The process is divided into two phases using two separate tools: Magic Plan for data collection and Accurate Enterprise for further input, quality assurance, and analysis. We'll start with the Magic Plan app. Magic Plan is used to collect 3D spatial data, including wall, window and door dimensions, along with general construction and appliance information. There are two methods of scanning: manual scan, a non-LiDAR scan, and auto scan, which uses LiDAR. To begin, position yourself in a corner of the room. You'll see the app start collecting the floor plan in 3D with a render below showing what has already been scanned. Augmented reality overlays white lines in real time, indicating where the LiDAR is capturing data. The scan automatically detects windows, even if they're behind blinds or curtains, and features basic object recognition. In the future, we aim to leverage this technology to capture whole-of-home appliance data. Once the scan is complete, you can fill in custom forms at the floor level, inputting details about construction materials required for a NatHERS rating. You can also label zones at the room level and specify details if they differ from floor level defaults. If necessary, this step can also be applied to individual windows and walls when their construction varies. You can take photos of appliances within the app to serve as evidence. If edits are needed, the floor plan can be adjusted easily. When finished, the project can be exported directly to Accurate. You can also generate a PDF report containing the full floor plan, a room-by-room breakdown, and any photo documentation collected. Next, we move on to Accurate Enterprise to complete the NatHERS assessment. The project file, complete with all dwelling and construction details and room dimensions from Magic Plan, is imported into Accurate. Here, assessors can verify the address, floor plan, zones and construction details against the photos collected. They can check insulation levels if different from defaults and add any details about neighbouring walls, shading schemes, or additional notes like skylights or roof windows. Once the whole-of-home appliance data and ventilation details are entered, we're ready to proceed with the analysis and run the simulation. This workflow provides an accurate and efficient means of completing a NatHERS for existing homes rating.
You will have to forgive our limited modelling budget for that video, but otherwise it gives a really good picture of the sort of start to end process. Next, we have Dave Brenaro presenting.
Thanks, Lachlan. My name's Dave Brenaro. I work across several teams in the NatHERS area. Now that you've seen an introduction to how the assessments are undertaken in the home, we thought we'd talk you through the outputs of the assessment, in particular the ratings and the end certificate that the householders will receive. You can see in front of you a brief explanation of the high level of the ratings outputs. The first being the home energy rating, which is the lead rating that would be disclosed under a sale or lease under the home energy, the home energy rating disclosure framework. And it includes a range of factors in producing this rating out of 0 to above 100, including the home's fixed appliances, its on-site solar generation, battery storage, and thermal performance, as well as the cost of the energy in the home, or an estimated model of that. The rating does go above 100, where 100 is a net zero energy costs for the course of the year. And if you're above 100, it means that you are producing more energy than the house uses. A key feature of the rating is that it's based on hourly energy demand, which means that the tool better reflects the real benefits of using solar PV and batteries. For example, if solar can't on its own power a heater at night without batteries. The second element of the certificate and the second rating is what you might be more familiar with, which is the star rating or thermal performance. It's out of 10, and it's based on the predicted amount of heating and cooling that the home needs to stay comfortable all year round, based on its local climate, design, materials and construction. Now we can show you the front page of the actual energy rating certificate that the homeowner would receive. It has a range of details on it, being the overall ratings of whole of home or energy rating and the star rating, but also provides information on the home's overall energy use and fuel types, on solar and battery use, and generation. It lists the key appliances or fixed appliances used on site and a estimated energy consumption of those and the energy they make up as a percentage of the house, and the construction details of the house, things like floor area, wall types, insulation types, etc. It's also an interesting factor is the home's comfort rating, which gives an indicator of the proportion of the year the home is expected to need heating or cooling to stay within a comfortable temperature range throughout the year. Moving to the back of the certificate, this is where upgrade advice is provided to a homeowner or a household. Currently, this advice is static common material for each of the 8 National Construction Code climate zones. We are working on building home-specific guidance into the tool for implementation at stage 2 launch by mid-2026. Moving on to some of the enhancements we are working on the assessment process and the software. This is a very big focus for us. We have 3 key areas where we're putting work into: assessment methods and training, software improvements, and working with third-party user interfaces over time. On assessment methods and training, we're looking at streamlining the assessment process, potential simplifications, and use of default values to make assessments faster, less complex, and more consistent. We're also upgrading the training process and packages as familiarity with the assessment methods as well as the software improves speed and consistency. On the software improvements, we are redesigning the input forms for the data collection tool Magic Plan, significantly streamlining the on-site data collection process and mapping additional inputs across to Accredited Enterprise. In the benchmark tool in Accredited Enterprise, we are simplifying key areas that we know take a lot of time at the moment or during the trials, including things like simplifying the shading inputs for eaves or neighbouring buildings, as well as improving the process for air tightness inputs as examples. We're also working on improving the software training across Magic Plan and Accredited Enterprise, and as I've already mentioned, enhancing the upgrade guidance provided on the certificate. And thirdly, we're working with user interfaces. We're hoping that they can provide a more streamlined and even more user-friendly experience, potentially tailored to specific use cases, or an end-to-end service that integrates data collection and the energy analysis in one location. So far, we've had 5 expressions of interest already, so it's been well received, and we're ready to start the process of accreditation of these user interfaces as soon as they're lodged, and believe there's a very good prospect of that being the case by stage 2 launch. I thought I'd just touch on a very important aspect that I know is of interest to lots of people, as well as how long do the existing homes assessments take. As you would all be aware, that providing an indicative assessment time is complex based on house design and size and other factors. But from the improvements I've just mentioned, we're hoping that by stage 2 release in mid-2026, we expect that total assessment times could fall between, under 2.5 hours on average for a 3-bedroom home, excluding travel. This would be an improvement of what we've experienced in the trials, of about an hour or so, where most assessment times were between 3 and 4 hours in total, excluding travel. Now, as I've already mentioned, it is important to keep in mind that during the trial, the assessment times did vary based on house size and complexity, the number of energy performance features of the home, the extent of the household engagement on site, the experience of the individual assessors as well. And also the trial, during the course of the trial, improvements were being constantly made to the training, the software and the processes. So assessors face steep learning curves, but times did drop over the course of their 20 or so assessments. So with these improvements that we're hoping and the reduction in time, even with the trials data, we are comparable to international schemes such as the Ireland Energy Efficiency reporting scheme. So we have a high degree of confidence we're on the right track, even at this early stage. And it's one of our key priorities to continue working on, looking for simplifications and streamlining. And we're hoping that third parties could further reduce the assessment times, maybe by another 30 or 45 minutes, depending on what they develop and how they drive innovation. I'll stop there and hand back to Joe.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you also to Lachlan. That was really useful information about how the tool works, how it's been improved to this point in time, how the assessment processes flow and are being streamlined. And it was really great to see a video of the practical application of the tool. Next up, I'm going to introduce you to Joe Brennan, who you may know, to talk to you a bit about how to become a NatHERS for Existing Homes assessor. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. So for those of you I haven't met, I'm Joe Brennan and I'm the Director of Program Design here in NatHERS. So I'll be taking you through the training and accreditation for NatHERS for Existing Homes. This session is really focused on the pathway for current assessors in the ACT Energy Efficiency Rating Scheme, NatHERS for new homes and the Scorecard. So you'll see here, this slide covers the reduced training that would be needed if you are one of those assessors. But it's important to just note that for anyone outside of these schemes or new to the sector, there is a requirement to complete the full suite of training to become a NatHERS for Existing Homes assessor. So these requirements were agreed by all Australian governments in 2022. They comprise a statement of attainment of the 7 units of competency from the qualification certificate for in home energy efficiency and sustainability. It's all outlined on our website, but just thought it might be helpful to quickly run you through that, just in case there is anyone online today who isn't one of these eligible assessors that my session focuses on. So the 7 units are, the first unit is manager's own work, professional development and ethical behaviour. I'm not going to talk through the numbers because you can find those on our website. The second unit is research and assess impact of building elements on thermal performance of residential buildings. The third unit is implement safe work practices in the property industry. The fourth unit is advise clients on thermal performance of residential buildings. The fifth unit is assess household energy use and efficiency improvements. The sixth unit is assess thermal performance of existing buildings. And the 7th unit is promote adoption of home sustainability practices. So you'd also need to have a certificate of completion for the conduct NatHERS assessments for existing homes training unit. And complete training in at least one NatHERS software tool for existing homes. So that full suite of training that I've just outlined there is really about ensuring that NatHERS assessments into the future with new people, wanting to enter the scheme or come into the industry, that they have the right skills and knowledge needed to undertake assessments to a high standard and really give that reliability to households. But as I mentioned, this session is focused on any of you who are existing Scorecard, ACT, EER and NatHERS for new home assessors. As I mentioned up front, this is a reduced training requirement, which is part of an industry transition plan, which was agreed by all Australian governments in March 2025. This reduced training is in recognition of your prior experience, your training and accreditation under those schemes. The reduced training requirements, as I said, are outlined here. They comprise the NatHERS for Existing Homes training unit, which we're calling Conduct NatHERS Assessments for Existing Homes, training in at least one NatHERS software tool, and Lachlan and Dave have spoken to you about what we have available at the moment under stage 1 launch, but also what might be coming in the future in terms of software tools. So we haven't specified here, we're keeping it just to be future-proof, to make sure that it is one NatHERS software tool that you need to complete training in, and also any additional work health and safety training if the appropriate unit hadn't been previously completed. So the industry transition plan is really about supporting all of you, our existing energy assessor workforce, to transition into NatHERS for existing homes. And we really want to make sure we're allowing adequate time for you as the assessor workforce to undertake these reduced training requirements, and also ideally progress through the accreditation process as well. The industry transition plan has been set up to ensure stability, market readiness, and a real focus on a qualified, experienced workforce for voluntary ratings. We've heard from many that workforce capacity is, a real issue and really important for individual programs and schemes who want to use the ratings. So the focus of NatHERS for existing homes training is to skill up learners on all elements of delivering existing home assessments. The training includes all requirements for assessors. It draws really heavily on our technical note and our guidance note, as well as including end-to-end training on the software tools. The training will be available online with both webinars and online learner guides, and also involve completing 3 training assessments of homes that you'll need to submit for assessment. The training can take up to 8 weeks for part-time learners to complete and submit all tasks, and this is really assuming that everyone's very busy with their existing work and businesses and family and all of those other things. So if you were to commit to doing training intensively, it's not an 8-week program, but what we have learned through the trials with people managing all of those other busy parts of their lives is that 8 weeks is probably a reasonable amount of time to think about dedicating to this task. We have updated the training with learning from the trials, improving the way that learners access the training resources, as well as significant content updates to the individual resources as well. There are also additional supports beyond the training resources themselves, including software tool boot camps. We have drop-in sessions, and we're also engaging experienced or accredited assessors and other industry specialists to act as mentors for learners. In terms of the next steps, we're really looking forward to being able to offer these industry transition training to support upskilling to deliver NatHERS existing home assessments in advance of stage 2. This training will be available at no cost and available from January. Will be accessible via an expression of interest process. We do have limited places, so because we are providing them at no cost, the expression of interest process will be important to help us manage allocating those places out. So we're expecting the expression of interest to open this week and remain open until early January. Those selected to participate in the training will be advised in January on the next steps for enrolment and onboarding into the training program. It's expected that learners will have access to things like tools and the training resources from late January. The expression of interest will have a lot more details about eligibility and training completion and some of the things that you should prepare for ahead of that. So probably to note, it is important that you can recruit 3 homes, including a Class 2 dwelling, a 2-storey Class 1 dwelling, to complete training assessments. Those training assessments are really important to bring together all the learning in the tools and do that full end-to-end process. So we like to see people being able to do those on all relevant classes of residential buildings. We do encourage having access to a LiDAR-enabled device that is compatible with Magic Plan, which generally means an iPad or iPhone Pro, sorry. While Android devices can use the manual scan feature in Magic Plan, it is quicker and easier to use compatible LiDAR device. However, we are not suggesting you all need to rush out and buy those devices. It is just something we've definitely learned from the trial. So I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. You don't need to apply for accreditation at the point of submitting your EOI. However, we will be hoping that you declare that there's no impediment for you applying for and being eligible for accreditation. So this includes complying with the relevant accreditation policies, so code of practice, insurance, workhouse safety, privacy, character checks, and other requirements and policies. We'll be able to send you links to all of those details after this session today. How long you'll have to finish the training will be detailed in the expression of interest as well. But yeah, as I just mentioned, sort of allowing for that 8 weeks is probably a good time to allow. Plus, there's some time that includes time for marking and if you do need to resubmit anything. As I said, training's available for current assessors in those programs that we've talked about already. And as training places are limited and we're providing them at no cost, we will be prioritising access to active assessors. So that means, if you've completed an assessment in one of those programs since January 2025. So as soon as the EOI is open, it will be distributed to the NatHERS news mailing list, as well as assessors in each of those eligible programs. Once you've been trained, the accreditation process to become a NatHERS for existing homes assessor takes approximately 2 to 3 weeks. We expect accreditation to be available to our industry transition assessors in April 2026. For our industry transition assessors, there will be no accreditation fee in the first year. Once you've been trained, the process involves submitting an application, passing a character check process based on returns from a nationally coordinated criminal history check and details of your history in other energy rating schemes, passing an online accreditation exam, obtaining the required insurances, which are $2 million of professional indemnity insurance and $10 million of public liability insurance. You'll also need to declare any conflicts of interest and propose any appropriate or relevant management strategies. And then there is a need to sign the assessor agreement, which includes agreeing to the assessor code of practice. So once that's all been successfully completed and your application's been approved, you'll receive your accreditation card in the mail. After this, there will be a need to ensure you meet the ongoing requirements for accreditation. These include maintaining your insurances, completing 12 points of continuing professional development each year, completing an annual knowledge and skills test, and demonstrating your ongoing competency and maintaining an appropriate performance history.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jo. That was a neat summary of the training arrangements we have in place for people here today, how the accreditation process works, and how to express interest in being involved. Okay, next bit is pretty exciting. We're lucky to be joined today by 2 of the first assessors to complete the NatHERS for existing homes trials and become accredited. So our warmest welcome to those 2 people, Seb Krangle and Kel Lupus. I invite you to turn on your cameras. Seb is an experienced assessor and auditor for both NatHERS for existing homes and the Residential Efficiency Scorecard. Kel is a sustainability consultant with experience advising government and industry on residential energy efficiency. He's accredited across multiple schemes with leadership, project management, and community sustainability advocacy expertise. Seb and Kel will be able to give you a rundown on how their experience with NatHERS for existing homes has worked, having come from other schemes much like yourselves. So the first question we're going to ask, and as to these people who are our first assessors to complete NatHERS for existing homes trials and becoming accredited, Seb, would you mind sharing your insights as a NatHERS for existing homes assessor to inform those who haven't yet used NatHERS for existing homes?
Sure. Yeah, I found it to be a really interesting learning curve in terms of learning how to use the NatHERS modelling software and also gaining some of the additional technical knowledge that required. And then also even just learning how to use Magic Plan and scanning homes with the LiDAR technology. So that was quite interesting for me. Initially, at the very beginning of the trial, it felt like we were flying the plane as parts of it were still being built, but that has, radically improved. And I was really slow at doing assessments, but over time, once I gained familiarity with Magic Plan and with Accurate, it got a lot quicker. And also the way that simplifications were built into the assessment process as we went along, including some of the data entry requirements and the automation that's being built in. So that also helped a lot, making it easier to do assessments. I now quite enjoy the modelling side of things. It's quite a visual process because you're working with a 3D floor plan from Magic Plan. And it's also quite a methodical process in Accurate to specify the exact details of the home that are contributing to the thermal performance and energy consumption. And this process is like to become even more visual once we have some of the user interfaces come on board later next year. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, all in all, it's been a learning experience for sure. But I think if you have a keen interest in energy performance and thermal performance, it's a really powerful tool to utilise in the work that we do.
That sounds great. Sounds like quite the journey for you, Seb.
Yeah.
Kel, would you like to throw in some comments from your perspective?
Yeah, of course. And I should add, just for a bit of context as well, because I'm now working with CSIRO on the help desk and the drop-in sessions, just to help NatHERS for existing homes assessors both in the field, but also in training. And I just wanted to also acknowledge that it's a really exciting time for our sector of the industry, and it's great to be involved at this stage of the program's development. Yeah, totally agree with Seb that the data capture tool, Magic Plan, I found it to be quite intuitive. There's a little bit more of a learning curve when we get to Accurate, but then I guess it's like any software or anything that we apply ourselves to, you do become more adept with practice. I think there's some similarities. So NatHERS for existing homes, it's a little bit like Scorecard in that it gives assessors a tool with which to make recommendations. So you've got like a government-backed device that says this is the outcome instead of just having somebody's opinion as they walk through a house. So I think it's good to qualify and quantify an assessment. It gives you a metric instead of just generalised advice. And I also like that it aligns closely or more with NatHERS for new homes, because so it just makes it a little less confusing for some of the homeowners. It's a common question, when you're in the field. What does this star rating actually mean? So I like that alignment's sort of in the space. Yeah.
All right, great, Kel, but don't turn off your microphone because I'm going to throw to you for the next question too. While it's not part of all assessments, a lot of assessors really pride themselves on having informative conversations with householders. Can you tell us a bit about your experience in using NatHERS for existing homes to inform recommendations to householders on how they can improve their home?
Yes, of course, and sort of a bit of a segue from what I was just saying, I suppose. I do want to acknowledge this as well, that that interaction with the homeowner is quite a personal / professional space. So maybe if I just sort of share a little bit of my experience. So I always do the meet and greet, the handshake, introduce myself, and then I'll start outside, and that's when I capture a lot of the key data, like air conditioning, hot water services, solar, batteries, etc. Right. Then undertake the scan with Magic Plan inside the house. Then I think we mentioned it before, clean up that scan, make sure that it's all in alignment. And then I get to show that 2D and 3D newly captured floor plan to the homeowner. And that's really handy because I know with Scorecard we have an opportunity to say, look, here's a preliminary certificate, which gives you a rough indication. But more importantly, it gives you a talking point for you to apply some of your personal observations and professional observations that you've made as an assessor. So using now that 2D, 3D model, you're able to, and it is very impressive, I have to say. I haven't seen a homeowner yet who doesn't go, wow, that's cool. So it gives you a chance to say, look, let's look at that west-facing window at the living room with no shading, internal or external. We might expect a heat load from that. And so it enables you to have a talking point, to engage with your client.
Yeah, some really hands-on evidence-based discussions. That sounds great. Seb, would you like to tell us about your experiences?
Yeah, I think that the key differences, but like you've got the different certificates, and Scorecard does provide some suggested upgrades automatically, which is helpful. But you can still use the certificate, the NatHERS certificate, as a trigger to those conversations. And then with the back end, you can get the raw data on energy consumption by zone. And as we do in Scorecard, you can download that, do some calculations, and potentially work out if the effect of different upgrades by running variation reports. So running multiple reports with different variables changed, and see what effect they have on the data on the energy consumption, and use that to even calculate payback periods and so forth. So it's not something I've done a lot with yet with NatHERS, because we haven't done a lot of work with households in terms of writing reports and so on, but there's definitely potential there. And I think as the tool develops and the third-party user bases come in, that could get it even better.
Yeah, right. That sounds really great. And yeah, thank you for highlighting that there are some differences with Scorecard, because we know that while NatHERS for existing homes has been built on the Scorecard method, there are differences. So the inclusion of batteries and consideration of hourly energy generation and use, for example. But as both a Scorecard assessor, Seb, and a NatHERS for existing homes assessor, how else would you compare the two? Are there changes you'd like to highlight to everybody, to Scorecard assessors primarily here today?
Sure. So obviously from what Lachlan was taking us through, it is a two-part process. So you do the site visit, do the scan of the house, and do the data entry, but then you go back to your desk and you do the modelling in Accurate. So that is significant, and I would say that the modelling is much more technical than Scorecard. The amount of detail and the specificity that you need to enter. So that can be a learning curve depending on your background. If you've done a Cert 4, done any NatHERS new build training with the NatHERS software, that helps a lot, but it's something that can be learned. So one of the positives clearly with the LiDAR technology is that you automatically capture dimensions of the rooms, windows, doors, and so forth. So no more getting out the tape measure measure the windows. However, it's true that at the moment anyway, for more complex houses, the scan doesn't always work that well, and you've just got to learn different methods of using the tool to pick up different complicated rooms. But it's doable. It's just you can't always use auto scan and capture a complex house. So yeah, going back to the modelling part of it, it is more detailed and specific. I've written up a little list here. I'll just read out of some of the main points where you are entering more detail than you would with Scorecard. First one being solar PV specifications. So you're including the direction that the panels are facing, the pitch of the roof, the inverter capacity, as well as the capacity of the panels. You're including, as you mentioned in the question, battery capacity for whole of home calculations. With hot water systems, they don't have a star rating, such as solar hot water and heat pumps. You're looking up the STCs, or the tool calculates them for you, but based on the size of the system, you're calculating STCs and entering them into the tool. We've got cooking appliances. They go into the plug load section. With pools, we put in the area or volume of the pool plus the type of pumps, whether it's single or variable speed. And then with the vertical shading being anything that's shading the house that's vertical, obviously. So fences and neighbours, like that's quite a difference. And there's some really good simplifications that have come in since we started the trial. So you're not necessarily having to go and measure the house next door and put it in exactly. There's some parameters you can enter. So that's a difference. With shading, you're measuring the exact dimensions of things like patios, eaves, of course, but patios or carports, anything that's shading walls. You're entering them in detail and applying them to particular walls that they're affecting. Second last, orientating the home. So you're putting in the exact orientation of the home, and then that automatically applies to every wall, window, roof feature in the home. And the last one is customizing construction elements. So you're not just saying it's brick veneer, you're specifying the thickness of the brick, the cavity in between, if there's insulation between, what's on the outside, and that's sort of custom built in a way. There are templates, but you can customize it. So that's a bit of a list I put together, but of course the intended purpose of all this additional detail is to make the modelling rate and rating results more fine-grained, and to make them comparable to new build NatHERS ratings. And I know that the Scorecard team put a lot of work into finding this balance between accuracy and depth of data entry. And likewise, the existing homes trial, NatHERS and CSIRO teams have been simplifying the requirements and automating the data entry to find that balance. And they're always looking to find ways to reduce the time it takes without affecting too much the outcomes.
Yeah, that's great. We are always looking for ways to improve. I can reassure everyone of that, to improve it, but that's really good insight. We have had a really good, strong relationship with Scorecard, and I guess that's helped us to make sure that the evidence results in some really robust outputs. Kel, would you like to have a go at answering this question from your perspective?
Well, Seb was so comprehensive with that. I've probably just got a couple of small points. One is I find that I've got less time on site with Magic Plan than what I was with Scorecard. It seemed a little bit quicker for me. But then you have more time at the desk to balance that out, I suppose. Yes, tape measure and laser measure stay in your bag unless there's something specific that stays in the tool bag. And I guess one of the other differences is that NatHERS for existing homes has an appreciation for room use. And that gets dialed into the software as well. So that's an understanding of how much time might be spent in a particular space in a house and what the implications are on heating and cooling, etc., with those type of things. So yeah,
that's great. Wonderful. I hope that was useful to everyone. That's the third question that I had for you guys, and we're going to have to stop there simply because I know that other people are asking loads of questions in the background and we want to get to those. Thank you, Kel. Thank you, Seb. That was really, really great.
Thanks so much, Joe.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are going to move on to some questions, but first I'd like to give a recap of the next steps. The key takeaways from today are that in the coming week, we're going to open up our expression of interest for current Scorecard, ACT or NatHERS assessors so that they can sign up for our no-cost training. So if that's you, be paying attention to that release. Successful applicants for that training are expected to be confirmed in January before training commences, of course, and more information on the process will be provided over coming weeks. We're planning on holding some deep dives in the new year to answer further questions that people might have. All right, so now we're up to the part where we get to answer your questions. If you have any, please use the Q&A function as demonstrated on the screen now. And again, because of the large number of attendees here today, we're going to be prioritising and moderating the questions, but if we don't get to yours, you'll be able to contact us directly after the session. We won't be getting down into the nitty-gritty of things like calculation methods, but you can feel free to reach out to us separately on those types of questions. All right, I'm going to throw the first question over to Joe Brennan. Joe, this is from Anthony. Can you tell us how many places are expected to be available for no-cost training?
Thanks, Anthony. So at this stage, we're expecting around 120 places to be available. So that's our sort of our estimate at this stage. And, you know, if we are able to find any extra spots, we'll try to, but at this stage, we're sticking around 120 places. So look forward to hearing from all of you interested in that EOI.
Me too. Thanks, Joe. Next question is from Jamie, and I'm going to throw this to Dave Bernaro. Dave, can you tell Jamie, is the 2.5-hour assessment time for just on-site data collection or also NatHERS editing and checking and feedback to clients?
Sure. So the 2.5 hours is an estimate of where we think we'll get at stage 2 of launch in mid next year. It's a total assessment time for on-site data collection and off-site editing and generation of the certificate for delivery to clients. It doesn't factor in a large amount of household engagement time because, as Jamie and others would understand, that's highly variable based on the situation. For example, under a disclosure type arrangement, there'd be potentially very little or no household engagement time, but in other areas there'd be more engagement if it was a voluntary request and bespoke upgrade advice was being sought. And also assessors in the market offer a range of different services and different personal styles, as was touched on by Kel and Seb.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Dave. Isaac, I'm going to throw this next question to you. It's from Sabrina. Is NatHERS for existing homes replacing or running parallel to the scorecard?
Thanks, Joe. That's a great question. So the plan of the Australian and Victorian governments is that there will be a transition from the scorecard to NatHERS for existing homes. And the Victorian government, who are responsible for administering the residential efficiency scorecard, I understand that they will be hosting a webinar early in the new year that can provide further information on next steps for the scorecard.
Okay, and while I've got you, Isaac, stay in the hot seat. I've got another one for you from Dan. When will the scorecard tool cease to be supported and unable to be offered by existing assessors?
Thanks, Joe. That's probably a very similar question to the last one. So the Victorian government is best placed to answer any questions about the future of the scorecard, and we understand they'll be holding a webinar early in the new year. Unfortunately, I can't give you that information.
Okay, so stay tuned next year from Victoria. Kel, can I ask you to highlight yourself because I've got a question for you from Alexander.
Yeah.
What are the biggest gripes or rooms for improvement that you see for the tools or processes at the moment, at least the ones aspiring to be NatHERS for existing homes, for those people to be aware of?
Oh, yes. So then the answer to that is it depends. It depends on where you're coming from. So of the three groups that have been mentioned in today's presentation, everybody can appreciate that all of those different groups have different perspectives on what a home energy assessment might mean, what tools might be used and so on. So I think probably the biggest difference or the biggest hurdle is to make sure you keep an open mind so that when you approach this new software, that you've probably got a lens on that's been established by your experience. So make sure that you're ready to learn something new. And I also meant to mention it before, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody through the help desk and through the drop-in sessions. So that's just one of the common things that we see, that it takes a little time, and I know this from my own experience, takes a little time to adjust. So that's the toughest thing. Yeah.
For everything, I guess.
Yep.
All right. Joe B, this one's for you. It's about training. It's from Henning Rasmussen. Do you believe the current units of competency pertaining to existing homes are in line with the new tool and its use?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So a really important part of our trials that Isaac covered earlier in the presentation, where we've now delivered over 1,000 assessments, trial assessments to Australian households, was to also just test the training. So it was really taking somebody, we took a range of different people through the training to ensure it was fit for purpose for not only you as our existing experienced assessor workforce, but also for anyone who's sort of fresh off the street, who's new to the sector. We've had interest from people with general property and construction backgrounds as well, maybe coming from architecture or pest and building surveyors, a whole range of different backgrounds in valuers, of course. So we wanted to make sure that putting somebody through the training, then putting them into the field to do trial assessments using the tools, talking to households, that reliable ratings were able to be delivered, and we're really happy and satisfied with the results of that that trial and the training pilot. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Big process. Thank you, Joe. Isaac, I've got a question for you from Roger. Will accreditation be Australia-wide or will it be state-based?
Thanks, Joe. That's an easy one. It will be Australia-wide.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And Kel, for you, from Henning again.
Mm-hmm.
Did you use the NatHERS technical note for existing homes? Was it helpful and does it need updating?
It's definitely helpful, and I definitely used it. So just from my experience with I don't want to keep referring just to Scorecard, but that was my background. So that the guidelines from Scorecard is about 109 pages, I think, and every assessment I did, that was on my iPad as well. Okay, so I'm quite accustomed to having the technical document on board with me. So if I get a challenge on site, I've got something that I can reference quite easily. Does the tech note need updating? Well, every document needs updating, and I know the tech note gets updated regularly. So yes, it's a living tool.
Okay. Yes, it is. Joe B, for you, from Henning. Is there a train the trainer available for TAFE and RTOs?
Thanks for the question, Henning. I think it's a really good question around train the trainer. What we are doing with our training products and resources is making them available to interested RTOs and ensuring there is that consistency through use of resources. We haven't developed a specific sort of train the trainer course, but we are very happy to work with RTOs and to support them in adopting the course and the course materials.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Joe. And I'll keep you there if you don't mind, because Angela has asked a question that I think you might be best to answer. Can the training component be outsourced to a third party? And if so, what training is required for the person who actually goes on site and collects the data but doesn't complete the assessment?
That's a great question. Thanks for that. Earlier in the presentation today, Isaac referred to an open consultation that we have running right now. That consultation is about proposals on additional training and accreditation pathways, which includes a data collector pathway, which would enable somebody to do the data collection offsite and pass that through to an accredited assessor who would then be responsible for generating the certificate and finalising the assessment. There's also a proposal in that paper around company level accreditation. Yes, we are, looking at, from our experience in the trials and delivering assessments in sort of a split delivery model with a valuer going on site and collecting data and passing that through to an accredited NatHERS assessor. We've learned a lot from that, and we've now put forward a proposal which is open for feedback right now. So if you think that is a good idea, or if you have views in any way, shape or form in either direction, we'd love to hear from you about that.
Bit of flexibility. Hey, Joe, thank you. Isaac, for you, please, from Sabrina. Do the 12 CPD points link to existing CPD requirements for NatHERS for new homes, or are they an additional 12 points?
So the answer to this one in general is that if a single CPD unit or activity that you're undertaking that would earn you a CPD point meets the requirements of both schemes, then it can be counted. Even if it is a NatHERS for new homes one, it can be counted for NatHERS for existing homes. There's more information about what those requirements are for NatHERS for existing homes. So what something needs to do to be eligible for a CPD point, and that's available on our CPD policy, which is available on our website.
Thank you, Isaac. Another one for Kel from Alex Fry. Will the drop-in sessions be run nationally?
Oh, they already are. So that's, it's a nice opportunity to have a little expansion on that, if it's okay, just to let everybody better understand. Yeah, okay, cool. So we have 3 drop-in sessions per week. That's Monday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday morning. And the idea is it's a collaborative event where we problem solve with more than one person, so that other attendees can learn from other assessors in training, and we find out what common challenges are and cover them off. But in addition to that, we also have a help desk, which is called Zendesk, and you can raise a ticket with the team. And so at a time, I know that when we're training, it's often in addition to our regular job, right? So maybe it's out of hours or whatever it might be. And so the help desk gives you an opportunity to contact the team with a specific challenge, and then we can get back to you on that as soon as we can. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. A really useful resource, that is.
Yeah.
Lachlan, haven't called on you, so I'm going to now. If you can come on board. This is from Jamie. How does LiDAR work when furniture and stuff is in the way of the scan? The video showed scanning mainly empty spaces or minimal furniture. Maybe there was a cleanup in advance of the video being produced.
Yeah, for one of them, I think it was my house, and I did ban all the children for the house for about an hour. So built on top of the LiDAR scanning, Magic Plan has some cleanup tools. So if you were to scan a space and there was a missing component of that scan, or if a missing element was detected, it would offer you to close the room. So it would estimate based off all the other positions that it has scanned where this wall is running through. As well as that, these scans exist in space. So when you do an auto scan, it automatically places the rooms in position in space. So if you're scanning a bedroom between 2 other bedrooms, we know where that external wall is. So if we do have to close off space and make that and allow the tool to do that estimate, we know where it should be in relation to the other walls that we've already scanned. So tech built on top of the scanning is probably the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you. Joby, this one is for you. It's from someone who has an organisation where they're thinking about bringing new assessors into that organisation. Can you give some guidance on the expected time frame for a brand new assessor to complete the full NatHERS qualification and become work ready?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I suppose our estimates at the moment from talking to RTOs and sort of broader industry participants is that to complete that 8 units, so the 7 units of competency and the NatHERS unit and the required software training, is it, to allow about 6 months to do that. That's, again, assuming people are doing that sort of on a part-time basis. During our trials, we did see, try and accelerate the training of our new to sector people through the full 8 units. But, it could be pretty tough at times. So I think, our best estimate is sort of allow for 6 months. However, if somebody wanted to do that in a more intensive way, they could probably complete it much faster than that.
Oh, I'm told that poor Joar is having some technical difficulties, which always strike at the best possible time. So there's a couple of questions that we've got coming through that I might take while we see if we can get that sorted out. So one question we had from Sabrina was, how do you add the wall, ceiling, floor insulations? i.e. what proof do you need to be supplied by the client to add into the modelling/report? I won't go into the absolute specifics of every circumstance, but in our NatHERS for existing homes technical note, it sets out the evidence requirements that need to be collected from each assessment. Generally, this is taking some photos which have been built into the Magic Plan forms with little reminders of the photos you would need to take. But there are also other forms of acceptable evidence for things that might not be visible or it might not be safe to collect. I don't know if we can hear Joar yet, so I might go to the next question, which is from ACT Buildings Approval. I hope that isn't their legal name, or at least the legal name of the person. So they've said that they noticed the feed-in tariff for whole of home software isn't accurate. For example, the software assumes the local tariff in the ACT is 11 cents, when in fact the tariff is 6.5 cents being reduced to 5 cents in the coming month. Does the software for existing homes make the same assumptions as the whole of home software, or is real world data used? I might throw that one to one of our technical experts, which is Daniel Daly.
Hi, hopefully everyone can hear me. Yep, thanks for the question. So in general, we try and keep things the same between the existing homes tool and the new homes tool. So at the moment, the tariffs are the same in the new homes whole of home tool as they are in the existing homes tool. But we do recognise the tariffs are not as accurate as they could be, and we've got a project just up and running at the moment to look at updating those tariffs. So that's probably all to say on that at the moment. It's on the list of things to update.
Great, thanks, Dan. Obviously, with highly technical ones as well, you're welcome to reach out to us at admin@nathers.gov.au. We'll keep going through. So there's a couple of other ones, and you'll forgive me if I'm a little bit slower at answering them, given this sudden change in roles. But one question we've got, is there a follow-up/review process to give a report with an updated star rating, etc., once the client has made any of the recommended changes? And that's from Sabrina. So that question, the answer to that one is yes, this is something we're evolving over time. But currently we allow assessors to update the assessment within a year of the original assessment being completed. In the CSIRO tool, Accurate Enterprise, updating this doesn't have an additional certificate generation cost. And we've set up, I suppose, a number of evidence requirements that would allow someone to provide evidence through to that assessor without the assessor having to go back to the site if they don't want to. That's entirely up to the assessor. You're not forced to accept that, but we do have that process. There is another question, which is, when will homes require a mandatory disclosure of the house energy rating at point of sale or lease across Australia? Well, there's my own answer, which is as soon as possible, but then there's the actual answer that I'm permitted to give, which is the disclosure of home energy ratings at sale or lease is a decision for state and territory governments. So all state and territory governments have agreed to the Home Energy Ratings Disclosure Framework, which basically outlines the settings and how disclosure would be implemented. States and territories are now looking at how they can implement that in their jurisdictions. The main one that we're working with at the moment is the New South Wales government, who, as I said earlier, are conducting trials of the Home Energy Ratings Disclosure Framework. And they're using those trials to inform their future decisions about when they might transition to mandatory disclosure. There is a few more that I've seen. So there is one in here that says, do you expect the qualification to become a separate accreditation as part of the national training package, i.e. a certificate 4? So that's a really good question, and it's something that we're looking at going forward. So Build Skills, who are the responsible authority for those sorts of things, are starting to do a bit of a review of the Certificate 4. And as that part of that process, not only will they look at whether the current Certificate 4 is appropriate and performing its duty well for assessments of new homes, but we also expect that to look at whether assessments for existing homes should be incorporated into that Certificate 4. So it's on the radar. What else have we got? So there's another one here about whether Magic Plan data collection can work without internet, and then whether assessors can upload that when they come back into reception. So the specific question is, will this new approach be feasible in regional and remote locations where internet connectivity can be unreliable? We currently have paper backup options as a failsafe and can enter dimensions later. So I might ask Lachlan to answer that one if it's okay.
Yes, so the scanning doesn't rely on an internet connection. So you can scan in airplane mode or without any reception. And then when you do get reception again, it will upload to the cloud.
Thank you, Lachlan. So there's a question from Roger Burrell, which is, so every time a house is sold, a new certificate would be required to confirm the dwelling's rating. I'm assuming that this question is relating to if certificates were used for home energy ratings disclosure purposes. In that case, there are a range of I suppose, different specifications for when a certificate would be required under the Home Energy Ratings Disclosure Framework. But there is a validity period for certificates if no changes have been made to the home. I believe that is 10 years. So if nothing has changed then, you could reuse the old one. But if something has changed and you are advertising a house for sale or lease, under the disclosure framework, you would get a new certificate to confirm the dwelling's rating and to make that available to interested buyers while you're advertising the property. So there's another question, which is, when will the paid version of training be available to prospective assessors, and do you have an idea of cost? This is from Jen, and I think perhaps Joe Brennan would be the best to answer this question.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Jen. So from stage 2 launch, we're aiming to have training available to any prospective assessors. We've been, communicating and promoting upcoming opportunities for RTOs to engage with us on those opportunities. And in terms of the cost, I think that's really an issue for the market to determine the cost of the training. We do provide for the certificate for a range of costs on our website to give people an indicative idea. And because the existing homes training package is less than a certificate for, we would expect it to cost less than that. But yeah, probably difficult for me to put a figure on it right now. It will depend on how much competition there is and in the market and what the offering is.
Thank you, Joe. Sorry, Isaac. I'm really sorry, everybody. I'm feeling nice and refreshed after my necessary restart. Just in time, I think, for only a couple more minutes worth of questions before we wrap things up today. Dave, if you can make yourself available for this question. This is from Sumit. Can an existing home be assessed without a site visit if the drawings and the required information is available?
Sure. At the moment, a site visit is required. However, if drawings and information is available, that could be used to either pre-populate some of the information or make the data entry after the site visit easier and more streamlined. Isaac did mention the ability to update certificates afterwards for change if there's been an upgrade based on a set of evidence that can be submitted to the assessor. And this is also the kind of thing that we might be hoping from third-party user interfaces, that pre-population of information using existing site plans or other technologies might even lower assessment times and time on site even further.
All right, great. That was a lot of questions. And I really appreciate people from NatHERS and from CSIRO jumping in and answering them so responsively. I know that there are a lot more questions there. We've had a lot of interest today. I apologise that we just simply didn't have time to get to them all, but I hope that the questions that we did get to answer have provided you some really good information about how the future looks for you, and hopefully you can find a place for yourself in that future. All right, so as I said much earlier in the session today, that we've recorded today's session and we're going to aim to publish it online soon. More information about what we've covered can be found on the NatHERS website. Please go in and visit and regularly check in on it, because we do provide updates there. We also recommend that you sign up to our NatHERS newsletter. That's the key way that we're going to be releasing the upcoming EOI. And as always, if you have any further questions or comments, please do not hesitate to contact us at admin@nathers.gov.au. For those of you who are interested in contributing to our consultation on the new pathways for assessor accreditation, Joe Brennan spoke about that earlier today. The consultation paper is up on the NatHERS website right now, and your feedback should be emailed to us by the 19th of December 2025. We're now going to draw the webinar to a close. We hope that everyone has a really restful holiday period. We know it's very close to the end of the year, and we appreciate you making time during a very busy time of everyone's lives to come and join us today. And we really look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you everyone for your time today. Have a great Christmas.